What up, nerds, and welcome to another brotherly episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 372, recorded Sunday, May 22nd, 2022. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the classic from 1982, Basket Case, 40 years old. Damn. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randu. What's up?
It looks like a squashed octopus.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
Man,
how's your squashed octopi doing?
I love sushi. Love it. Gotta have it.
All right. You do it with the ginger? You do the wasabi? What do you do? How you do that shit?
Yeah, a little bit of wasabi. I steer clear of the ginger most of the time. TBH.
I'm a hard pass on both, but you know, I don't really know how this topic got started, so well, on a good track.
It's a Japanese film for sure. We all know that for sure.
Mushy, yes, we know.
Mushy. Next up, calling in from South Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy, Big Bad Basket Brother Stain.
No second takes.
Big Bad Basket Brother Stains.
Hold on, let's try that one more time.
Oh, what up? It's your boy, Big Bad Basket Brother Stains.
Big Bad Brains.
That's my new punk band. You like the punk rock, right, Randy?
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of the Big Bad Basket Case Brains.
You like to punk rock.
Right? I'm channeling Bob's 69-year-old ass over here with this.
What, you sticking drumsticks up it and selling them after?
Yeah, that's the one. You know it. You love it.
I'm all about the mumble hop now. No sticks in my asshole.
Oh, yeah. No sticks in my
Nope.
But you are getting pegged quite a bit, as I understand it.
Oh, well, of course.
All right.
Classic straight chilling episode.
Oh, man. Last but not least, making his triumphant return to the Straight Chilling podcast. Everybody welcome back our good friend, Warren. What's up, man?
Yo, what's going on, guys? I am going to finish my bucket of fish heads, and then we'll talk.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic. Dude, Warren, you have a wonderful podcast of your own called Simpsons is Greater Than. Do you want to remind everybody where they can find your shit real quick?
Absolutely. And if you guys, there's a lot of people out there that like The Simpsons. And what I always say is if you like it, but you're concerned that you don't like it enough, well, listen to my podcast called Simpsons is Greater Than, where I will defend even the worst elements of The Simpsons. And you can hear me do that every week with people from the show, people who like the show. We do it all. We love The Simpsons. So do that. Check out my collection at Bard of Darkness. Check out all my stuff. And, let's be friends. That's really what, at the end of it, I just want more friends. So come be my friend.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that got very sincere at the end.
We like it. So we had you on for this episode specifically because last October we were reviewing some of the Treehouse of Horror episodes from The Simpsons, and one of the shorts on there was loosely inspired by Basket Case. And you mentioned you'd not seen that movie before, and we were like, well, damn, we got to cover it on the show, and when we do, we got to make sure to have your ass back on to talk about it. So here we are, making it happen today.
And not only that, but it's interesting because not only had I not seen this movie, I didn't even know that it was the inspiration for that Simpsons treehouse, because most people credited it to nothing. They weren't like, oh, this is just an original idea. No one really knew. Mm-hmm. And until I talked to Bill Oakley and he said, oh, it's actually inspired by this 80s movie called Basket Case, I was completely unfamiliar. So this was, a new experience for me to check out this movie. So I got a lot of thoughts.
Fantastic, man. Thank you so much for sitting in with us. Before we get to the main event, we do have some housekeeping, so let's jump into that real quick. Here's another reminder for you. We do have our June poll pick currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get a chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this June. Randy, June was your takeover month. What's going down, sir?
Yeah, so for my takeover month, what I decided to do was choose some films that are made for TV. So it's made for TV horror is the idea that I came up with. So from the options given, they are Threads, the BBC BBC film from, I believe, the early 90s, I want to say. I can't remember now. Duels, which is Spielberg's first film, as I understand it. And then John Carpenter's Body Bags, the failed pilot turned film for television. So how are those going in the poll there, Bob?
Threads is winning handily now.
Oh, shit.
Whoa, pulled ahead, huh?
Pulled ahead. And then Body Bags is in second place, and nobody gives a shit about early Spielberg.
They never have.
Oh, man. So, yeah, make sure you get your votes in before the end of May, and we'll see what we're talking about this June. In other Patreon news, we got a brand new mini-cast dropping this Friday. Juice, you are talking about a new release called You Won't Be Alone? Is that right?
Yes, I was talking about that movie. I mentioned a couple times on What You've Been Watching, but it's a brand new film that came out. It's an interesting kind of artsy piece, but it's witch themed. I think if you like The Witch, Robert Eggers, I think you could really get something out of this film because it has a lot of similarities. I just think it kind of cranks the kind of like slow paced artsy level a little bit higher than even The Witch. So if you feel like you can get down on that or tolerate that kind of like slow paced type of film, I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, you can hear my thoughts fully this week.
Very nice. Yeah, that's dropping Friday over on Patreon. If you guys support us at the $10 level or above, you get an access to a bunch of Patreon-specific episodes. There's over 60 on there now, and you can listen to those on Patreon or on your podcatcher of choice. What else we got going on? I guess I'll hand it over to you, Juice. That's just about all we got for Patreon, but I know we have quite a few other things we got to get to.
Okay.
Let's squeeze the juice. What do we got?
So double shots of soju this week. Triple shots. You are going to get fucked up this week because I teased it last week, but if it dropped, I wasn't exactly sure when it was going to drop. But the newest episode of the Twimby podcast features myself. That is TWIMB, Twimby. It's on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And that's me and our boy Corey talking about BioShock. And this is part 2 of his series. So he kind of set it up in a part 1 by himself. And then we have a discussion together more in depth about mostly BioShock 1, but we do dip into the others a little bit as well. So if you like BioShock, check out that episode. Also on A Cut Above. So I joined that crew over there, getting ready for the summer season and talking about old sleepaway camp.
Wasn't that nice of me?
Yeah, that's infamous one here from the old Straight Chilling crew. But I talk about it again. It's been a while for us, so it's interesting to revisit that one. And also, finally, some new YouTube content. This is another one of Bob's Tiki videos inspired by this film. This is going to be the second this year. Bob, tell us all about this cocktail you're making for us.
Juice?
Yeah, a little bit. More than a little bit.
We are wheezing the juice over on YouTube. Yeah, so I made a cocktail inspired by Basket Case. It's called the Belial. And if you're listening to this episode right now, that video has already been posted. You can go over there, check it out. It is a rum-based cocktail. I won't give it all away, but if you want to know exactly how to make it yourself at the house, swing on by YouTube/Straight Chilling Podcast, I think.
Yep, YouTube. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and check out that video. It is a delicious and also frightening beverage. And it goes on this guy right here. If you're in more YouTube content, showing off
behind
my
the scenes
Belial Tiki mug, which is bloody and weird.
That thing is heinous.
It is.
Where does that thing come from?
Oh man, I ordered this one online.
Was that a Mondo or is that something else?
It is not a Mondo. I forget where I got it, but I can look it up as we're talking and tell you in a minute here.
Great. I'll stretch for you. Now,
thank you.
In this cocktail does sound quite delicious. I am partial to the rum drinks, and like, is it iced? How we taking it? Is it warmed?
Oh yeah,
perhaps
it's definitely iced. It's dirty dumped actually, as most tiki cocktails are.
Well, I mean, I know that one. Well.
That sounds right up your alley, Bob.
You gotta do the dirty dump. I got this tiki mug from Middle of Beyond. If you are,
wow, it's crazy. You just brought that off the top of your head.
Just right off the top of the dome there. Look at that.
Right off the dome.
Also, the last thing I've got to mention here is the past couple weeks we have been not doing our Joe Bob live watch, but this Friday, the 27th, we're definitely going to be back on track with our Joe Bob watch parties. So if you want to join in
around here, that means big money.
If you want to join in on that, I will post a link to join the Zoom watch party /chat just before 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is when Joe Bob kicks the show off. Is that everything? Is our house clean?
Yeah.
Yeah?
All right.
Sweet.
This house is clean.
We're kicking off the main event. We're talking about Basket Case, and let's start with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right, Basket Case from 1982 with a runtime of 1 hour and 31 minutes. This was written and directed by Frank Henenlotter, stars Kevin Van Hittenreich, Terry Susan Smith, Beverly Bonner, and a bunch of other folks. Plot synopsis.
I believe it's pronounced Bonaire.
Bonaire. I've got a Beverly Boner.
Wow.
The plot
making
synopsis.
Really the simplest fucking connections we possibly can here on Straight Chilling.
Killing it. Really killing it. Plot synopsis brought to you by the back of the box is as follows. Dwayne Bradley seems like a pretty ordinary guy. His formerly conjoined twin Belial, on the other hand, is a deformed creature who lives in a wicker basket. Arriving in the Big Apple and taking up a room at a seedy hotel, the pair set about hunting down and butchering the surgeons responsible for their separation. Gentlemen, had you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Warren, why don't you kick us off, man?
Okay, so like I said up top, I had not seen this before. In fact, I might have heard the name, but I knew very little about this. I think I had Bill Oakley explain it to me because I feel like I knew nothing. It was an experience, man. I had no expectation going in other than the rough synopsis I had heard. And I would recommend it. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth watching. It's if it was possibly made with a little bit more skill, it might be better than some of the other more known horror stories. I think it's a cool idea for a story.
Okay, sweet. Juice, what about you?
This was a first time watch for me, and I think I found about it the same way as Warren. Not the same, but not until we were discussing it because of the Simpsons episode that we did last October, where we were all talking about, it's inspired by Basket Case. So that was the first time I even heard it. And the thing about this is we are covering it as one of our classics for the year. And so in that vein, I would say I don't think it lives up to that title. I know it's the 40th anniversary this year, but I don't think I would consider this a horror classic. And I don't have a very strong recommend. It's very much a B-movie schlocky kind of film. So if you're into that, it kind of honestly reminded me of Private Parts, which we just kind of covered not too long ago, earlier this year, maybe a month or so ago. And so if that's your kind of realm of horror, then yeah, check this out. But other than that, not really recommended.
Randy, what about you?
Yeah, I have seen this movie. I think this is my third time watching this film. I did not get to it until after college sometime. So it's not, something I've lived a long life loving or anything like that. But I do generally recommend it. Yeah. I think that this movie firmly fits into the campy, schlocky B-movie horror stuff. And I think it's very self-aware of that fact and leans in to just the right degree for my tastes. Whereas some movies that exist in similar areas, like Sleepaway Camp, like you mentioned earlier, just to me, succeed by way of failing spectacularly. This movie, I think it wanted to be, and is as silly and ridiculous and over the top as I think they felt like they could get away with. I think it's almost more comedy than it is horror or anything. Like I think it's a pretty self-aware comedy, honestly. So yeah, and if that sounds up your alley, then yeah, I think this is probably for you. I don't think that it's not self-aware to the extent of like Black Dynamite or something like that, but it's self-aware enough for its era to kind of like straddle that line to kind of a perfect degree for my particular interest in both comedy and horror. So yeah, I generally recommend it. It's a good midnight movie type of deal.
Sweet deal.
Bob?
Yo.
I missed the cue first to ask you, do you have this box? You got the mug. You got the box to back it up?
I got that sweet baby blue right here.
There it is. Okay. Thank God. Okay.
Yeah, I actually have the Arrow video edition of this, and if you are a fan of this movie, I highly recommend picking this thing up. It's really easy to find, and the list of special features on the back is like a damn novel. It's insane how much like love they put into this release. So if you want to know everything you could possibly know about Basket Case, pick this up from Arrow. I dig this movie though. I've seen it a handful of times, and I think it's definitely worth watching. It's very low budget and rough around the edges, but it is certainly a kind of a pitch perfect grindhouse type of movie. So like if that's a vibe that resonates with you, I think you're really going to love this movie. And I think the balance of comedy and horror works pretty damn well for me anyways. I recommend it. I think it's definitely worth watching. That sounds like a medium recommend across the board from us.
I would say generally positive recommend.
Generally positive.
With one weirdo.
Okay.
All right.
Even Bob's recommend was pretty cute.
Let me say this. So I there was a lot, like for the first 15 minutes, I was just laughing the whole time. And I watched it with my wife and I was like, okay, this is real bad, And around the halfway mark, I look over at my wife and I go, am I crazy or is this kind of good? Like, I really do think it sort of comes around at a point and feels not so dumb. Like there is that self-awareness that Randy's talking about. It is, some of the acting is horrendous. It has all of that. But I do think the story at its core is interesting and kind of cool, and it's easy to sort of get into it by the end. So, but it really counts on you giving it a chance. Yeah. It doesn't set up, it doesn't answer half the questions for you at all. And you really got to just watch the whole thing for some of it to even make sense. And I kind of like that about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie requires kayfabe and just leaning into the unreality of it.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning, and then we'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
Bob, do you have this plot synopsis you can drop on us?
I got it, and I'm going to drop it right now.
All right, give me that dirty drop, Bob, or whatever. Dirty dump.
The dirty dump.
Dirty dump. Gotta take a wicked dirty dump. Okay, goddamn. What a shame that I said that.
Randy is censoring him. Randy is shaming him.
Yep.
What are you doing, idiot?
One man skid over there.
Damn.
I got a real Gollum complex about that joke.
All right, Bob, drop that flop synopsis.
Basket Case opens up with the murder of Dr. Lifflander in his home. We then see Dwayne check into a New York City hotel carrying a large wicker basket. Dwayne then goes to visit Dr. Needleman, and on his way out, asks receptionist Sharon out on a date. We then see a very nervous Dr. Needleman call Dr. Cooter, saying he can't find Lifflander, he won't return his calls, and a strange boy stopped by with a large scar on his side visiting him and said that Lifflander was dead. Belial then attacks and kills Needleman. Dwayne then goes on a date with Sharon and leaves Belial at the hotel. Belial rages, causing a commotion. Several tenants investigate the room, resulting in Belial. Exactly. Belial then kills one of the tenants, O'Donovan. Dwayne also has a psychic connection with Belial, we find out, and he can sense something is wrong. He runs back to the hotel, tells Sharon to keep away from him. We are then treated to a flashback of when Dwayne and Belial are 12 years old. We see they are conjoined twins. Their mother died during birth, and their father resents them for it. Their father hires Lifflander, Needleman, and Cooter to separate them, even though Belial would likely die in the process. They perform the procedure on the dining room table and assume Belial to be dead. They throw his body in the trash.
Hey, all right. My kind of guy.
However, he is not dead. Dwayne and Belial then murder their father and are raised by their aunt. Back to present day, we see Dwayne and Belial visit Dr. Cooter. Belial strangles her and shoves her face into a drawer full of scalpels. Sharon then meets Dwayne at the hotel, and she's very shaken because she had to identify Dr. Needleman's body. He consoles her, and as they are about to have some sexual intercourse, Belial freaks the fuck out again, and Dwayne throws her out of the room. Dwayne ends up falling asleep and has a dream that he's running naked through the streets of New York, runs all the way to Sharon's house. He proceeds to grope and have sex with her while she sleeps. Dwayne then wakes up from his dream and realizes Belial is gone. We cut back to Sharon's room and find out that Dwayne has dreamt what Belial has actually done due to their psychic connection. Sharon wakes up terrified as Belial is on top of her, and Belial kills Sharon. Dwayne runs into the room too late, grabs Belial and brings him back to the hotel. Dwayne and Belial have a brawl in their room, resulting in them both falling out the window to their supposed death. Roll credits.
Perfect.
Ooh.
Perfect. Get ready for me to shit on this film. I feel a lot more better about it since there's going to be 3 people defending it.
Well, as long as you feel more better, that's what matters.
I do.
Much more better. Yeah, this movie is like crazy low budget, and you feel that as you're watching it. But I think it's sort of like the low budget factor and the also the setting that it was set in, like, you know, New York City in 1982 was like sort of a grim, grimy type of place. And I feel like the low budget just sort of like leans into that feeling of the setting anyways, in a way that like kind of works for it. This movie just has like a thick layer of like grit to it that I kind of dig. I don't know. How do y'all feel about it?
Well, I rewatched, I guess, the Joe Bob segment. So I'm going to be infusing some of that knowledge from the Joe Bob segments, I guess, as I go. I guess that was like the intention of the filmmaker, Henenlotter, right? Who, like, you know, he was, I guess, very fascinated by like how of like 70s era strip club central Times Square, New York City. And so this movie was very much like an ode to that in some ways, as it was sort of like phasing itself out and becoming more family friendly around this era, or was about to be. And I think that's kind of interesting to me, that like, I kind of feel like the tone of this movie, New York is kind of a character in and of itself in this movie. I know people say that about movies and shit all the time, but it kind of does feel like it in this one. It feels very like omnipresent in a way that movies like fucking Jason Takes Manhattan could only dream of. So, you know, this is the kind of like schlock that I would have wanted from a movie called Jason Takes Manhattan. And I don't know, I like that about it too. I think that's really fun, honestly. So, and it does it in a way that like, it's not like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I'm pretty sure that happens kind of the same era. And it kind of it's just set in that same sort of setting. And it just doesn't hit as well because it's not this goofy and ridiculous cartoon version of it.
It's Henry of a Portrait Serial doesn't hit as hard as this movie. Is that what
No,
you're
did
saying?
I say that? Maybe I misspoke. What I'm trying to say is that this movie is more cartoonish and silly and fun, and by proxy, it makes the city fun, even though it's not really.
Oh, the city fun. Okay, I was very confused about. I thought you were saying Henry was not as
the city is not fun.
Oh, okay. I got you. So I wanted to kind of talk about something that a lot of people have mentioned, and also touch on something Randy kind of said too. So a lot of the complaints I'm going to have about this movie aren't the ridiculousness of why is this thing strong and why can it do these things? I can get past some of that. But one of the things I really want to kind of touch on initially, because I've seen it come up and up in our Slack Warren mentioned it and everything. Y'all mentioned it in your recommendations of this being like so infused with comedy, and there is just not a lot of there. There was one moment where the thing crawls out of the toilet where I thought like, that's kind of funny, but never did I thought the first 20 to 30 minutes of this movie where he's going to get in a hotel were so goddamn boring. And I didn't find, other than just absolute ridiculousness happening, I didn't find any like punchy moments of like humor being like, that's really funny. Like that's a joke that is being delivered and landing to me. I didn't get like hardly any of that at all.
Well, the editing is atrocious.
It's terrible.
And like, I feel like every single cut is the second after action. There's like always like 3 seconds of weird space before
and
everything
it's all
happens.
it like doesn't start panning until like a second and a half in, like oh shit, we didn't cut that movement.
So that is my biggest complaint, and I think certain shots linger for way too long. But I mean, I think when we say like they leaned into it, in my opinion, what I mean by that is I feel like they knew some of the takes weren't great, but that would sort of work if they didn't try to. Like, they're not going to have the guy be like, all right, $20 a night 10 times, because they're just trying to get this thing done. Mm-hmm. I think there has to be a point where they realize like that's just part of it and just went with it.
I think
I could be wrong.
Belial is what the greatest source of the comedy for me is. Like anytime Belial is on screen and he's like screaming his fucking head off, or he's raging and like, you know, throwing shit around the room, or like whenever he's attacking somebody and like clearly the actor is just holding on to this like stuffed half rubber man thing and shaking it around. That shit is all hilarious to me. I don't know.
I think it's pretty funny. The thing picks up a man by his dick. Like, you can't tell me that's no comedy intended.
I like the guy that's obsessed with the money.
Yeah, I do too. Like,
it's funny as shit.
That's the other thing is the characters that like live in this seedy hotel are a source of comedy. They're not necessarily punchy. I wouldn't give them that, because I think, to Warren's credit, like the timing of a lot, like the actor's timing and the timing of the editing and things like that, they do not like work well as a comedy or anything else really. But I think that like they're meant to be kind of humorous little like vignette type characters, like the guy who runs the place and is like, I live in a crazy house and shit. It's like sitcom characters that
he was kind of the best. He had George Costanza vibes to me, and he was the best kind of like delivering his character to me. So
he got better as it went on.
Yeah,
he definitely got better.
Just got more and more big.
I give you
and
that
like,
guy. Yeah,
and you know, I liked just the way, like, okay, so I forget her name, but the blonde-haired love interest woman,
Sharon.
Mm-hmm. Who's clearly wearing a wig. Like, her acting is so like ridiculous, but it's clear they're trying to be funny, but it's kind of funny because it's failing to be funny to me. It's, I don't know how to describe that, except, you know, it's like watching, you know, Wet Hot American Summer and seeing the Alan Shimper character tell a terrible joke and everyone lose their minds laughing. There's something like absolutely inane and silly about it. So I don't know. I just don't think that the filmmakers took this concept all that seriously, or took like the making of this movie incredibly seriously. I think that sense that they wanted to make a movie and make cool effects and give it sort of a story that the people can follow. But I don't think that they were super serious about this. Like, oh man, it's got to be this. They weren't going for auteur with this. And I mean, you can say that about a lot of films, but in this movie, I think that they really, when I say they leaned in, I think that they leaned into just kind of knowing what it was they were making and just have fun with it. Like,
well, that's what I kind of struggle with, because I feel like this movie, like, especially if we're going to pick a certain aspect of it and say, like, are they really trying? Are they leaning into this? There are moments, especially around this creature, where I feel like they're really trying and putting a lot of effort into this. And sometimes I put a note, it looks cool and very interesting. Like, where there's one moment, I think, where it kind of reveals itself in the room, where I think there is an actual guy coming out of, they've got like actual makeup and stuff, stretcher costume. I was like, okay, that looks like good in its own terrible way. And then obviously they're doing like some stop motion effects, which takes like a lot of effort to do and stuff like that. And so I can't fully lean into that idea of where they're just like, oh, absolutely silly. And most of the time somebody's holding this plastic thing against their neck when that's not completely true. Half the time they're actually putting in quite a bit of effort to make this thing somewhat menacing or interesting. But I just like, I don't know. I'll give the good to the good, but I think the bad is just bad.
Well, this is a very like run and gun production. They had, I think, $16,000 when they started making this movie, which was literally all the money Henenlotter had to his name. And they got like halfway through production, he ran out of money, so they had to just like start scrapping together money wherever they could find it. And like by the time they wrapped production, I think in total they spent $35,000 to make this movie. Like they didn't have permits when they were filming in the streets. Like it was just a very scrappy, like thrown together sort of like DIY production. So I think they legitimately tried to make a good movie, and this was the best they could do with what they had. So I think in some scenes it comes across as like more successful than others because maybe they had more time or more money that day, or you know what have you. But like making a creature look good requires like somebody who really understands lighting and like a DP that's like got, you know, a few reps, and like that's probably not what they had here. So like this creature in some situations looks extremely goofy, but like I think that just adds to the charm of the movie for me, knowing that like they had no money and like they probably spent a few $100 to make this creature, and like the little like claymation like sequences where he's scooting around the floor look goofy, but like I just kind of dig that you can see the seams on this thing. You know,
totally. And that, like, I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from too, is like, okay, I know this isn't a reference point that a lot of people will get, but I was a big fan of like the Chris Gethard show, which was a public access show where improv comedians would come on every week and play some ridiculous concept up, like what's in the trash can, and have people call in and guess what's in the fucking trash can. And they're trying to make a fun show. They're trying to make something interesting. They're doing some things with a lot of effort, but you know, things falling apart and sort of the hubcaps falling off the car and in a really hilarious way. That's part of the fun too. Like they know that they're making something that is slapshod, but they're trying really hard to make it, and just sort of laughing at how they're raking leaves on a windy day with it. And I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think the reveal of him is real bad, but they immediately kind of save it because like the next two shots of him, someone's in it, which I like. And I mean, like, you know, like we're all saying, there's moments that are cool. I think the score is pretty decent. Like it starts off, you know, kind of cool. Like there's definitely like, you can tell there was a mix of no money and some money as they were making this movie.
Yeah. And I guess that's my problem too, because when I have a movie like this, I guess I'm expecting a real kind of schlock fest where you're like, oh, look at this crazy gore and stuff like that. And because of its limitations, it can't even really deliver on that. I think there's one moment of interesting gore, and it's like played off like so lightning fast that it doesn't have like a whole lot of impact. It's where the doctor gets like her head put in with a bunch of scalpels, and she comes out, she got a bunch of scalpels in her face. Most of the other things is just like really terrible looking fake blood just kind of coming down people's heads in a general kind of sense of way. It doesn't look particularly interesting. There's not a whole lot of like makeup effects going on. And so even for a schlocky like B movie where you're like, oh, what kind of crazy gore am I going to get from this nuts kind of monster? It's like nothing. You're not really going to get really anything. I mean, the whole kind of appeal of this is look at this wacky ass monster that they have conceived.
I think when he kills Needleman, it's pretty fucked up, if I may say so. It's just pretty, I mean, he's like splits his stomach open and he rips him in half. I mean, it's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
And, you know, to me, like, I guess I don't equate schlock with it having to be like great gore effects. It doesn't like, or even like a lot of gore effects. I don't think schlock necessarily has to be, you know, all that. Like that's the whole selling point, especially not in this movie. Because, okay, and here's another Joe Bob thing that I learned from his show, which is that they, at one point they kind of got cold feet because it got a bad reception at the Cannes Film Festival of all places.
The Pecan Film Festival.
The Pecan Film Festival. And so they tried to release this as a straight comedy by removing all of the gore scenes and doing just all implied off-screen stuff.
Oh, God.
So yeah, I think they knew that there was some comedic edge to this thing. I think they knew that it was a comedy. And I also think that the gore was never all that they wanted to portray with this movie. I think that what they wanted was this crazy little story with insane characters set in this grimy ass setting, sort of lovingly set in this grimy ass setting. I don't know, man. I think that the gore was part of the package, but I don't know that it's the whole deal. And it certainly didn't come off that way.
It's so crazy to me because any elements that people say they like about this, I just don't see the elements there. Again, with the comedy, I can't imagine them trying to make a comedic cut of this film because there's just no jokes delivered. It's all kind of situational and you have to have some kind, I didn't find the guy looking for the money humorous at all, 0%. I got no laughs from that. Literally, the situational things were the thing getting out of the toilet, or the guy running through the streets naked. But there was never a time where I was like, "This is fucking hilarious." Never.
No, it's a chuckly movie.
Yeah,
no, I don't think that you're
right now.
Different tiers.
If someone recut this thing and put in a couple slide whistles and I think you could make this movie pretty fucking funny.
Some
Yes, I'm telling you, someone could make this. Someone could make this funny right now.
This is the sound effect.
We got to make this straight killing cut.
Belial touching yabos.
It's all Randy's just sound bumps.
Dude, honestly, I think that those things. I mean, in fairness, you could make a lot of movies funnier that way.
You could,
but I think that this movie, I guess that's really up to taste. I mean, some people really bust a gut at Wes Anderson movies. I get a mild chuckle out of those too. To me, there's different. It can be funny without being bust a gut to me. Sleepaway Camp is bust a gut to me. This movie is amusing, and I enjoy watching the characters be ridiculous. And I really enjoy watching Belial basically turn into 3 different effects in the same scene. I don't know. I love the hairstyles. I love the setting. It's a very charming film. To Rob, I think it was you that was pointed out how DIY this actually is. Yeah, and I'm just largely very ingratiated to that kind of production. Yeah. And when you can feel that, and you can feel that the people making this don't have all the resources, but have all of the, the spitfire that it takes to put out a film, there's something that I find endearing about that, and maybe that pushes me the rest of the way.
Yeah, Henenlotter made this happen out of sheer will, and it's not the greatest movie in the world, but I appreciate that he loved filmmaking so much that he just made it happen on his own. I don't know. I like this story. I think it's a cool idea for a horror movie, these two brothers being separated at the age of 12, which not even at birth, they're fully aware of what's happening. Yeah. And the dad's your brother might die when he gets cut off of you, but we're doing it anyway. And we're having the doctors over to the fucking house to do it on the dining room table. How horrifying is that? And then they literally throw your brother in the trash. That's what happens at the age of 12 for this Dwayne character. Yep. That's pretty horrific, man. So when they grow up and want to exact their revenge, you kind of understand, even though Belial's terrifying and
yeah.
Oh my God.
So I will give it that, since I'm going to constantly mostly shit on this film, is that the one scene that I found, a couple things that I found intriguing as they string them along together, is the idea when the brother can't sleep and you find out, this thing is speaking to him in his mind, and it's kind of starting to drive him mad. And then the overall kind of jealous connection and how the freak brother exploits that and stuff like that. And that is interesting. And I feel outside of even just The Simpsons, this has inspired some kind of evil twin things. And so there is something to that. The negative of that effect, though, again, going back to just how low budget this is and just the general low grade of this movie is nobody can act in this movie. And so this kid and this character is almost a big nothing. So anybody who, like a guy who's supposed to be portraying some kind of, jealousy or some kind of bitterness towards these doctors, which I didn't really see until that very last scene. Actually, he did a pretty good job in that, like, kind of last scene. But for the most part, he's just this big vanilla bean. I mean, he can't act. He has no specific characteristics to himself, only his situation. And so even the best, most intriguing parts of this film are like kind of fall on a flat note to me because of that as well.
Maybe I just explain things away too easily, but I look at that as like, look, he had his brother surgically removed at 12. He killed his father. He was raised by his aunt. He had to keep all these weird secrets. He's never been with a woman. Like, clearly this dude is probably what someone in that situation would be like. They would have no personality. They wouldn't understand social cues. They wouldn't know not to show a huge wad of money to the seedy hotel lobby. Like, I mean, I know it's really at its core bad acting, but there is some element of that sort of makes sense. This dude would be fucked up. So I don't know that I guess I explained that away to myself too easily.
No, I tend to agree. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's totally fair to say that acting wise, honestly, maybe the best acting in this movie is the hotel manager, because he is full scale vaudeville actor going.
I kind of like Needleman a little bit. Needleman's kind of funny.
Yeah, Needleman also chews up some scenery. Yeah, that's for sure.
Liftlander in the beginning is hilarious too. When Belial cuts the power, he's like, "Oh God!" He's freaking the fuck out.
I had a good laugh at that.
Oh God, no!
Exactly. Yeah, the power's out.
So, oh God, no! No, I don't know. When it comes to fucking main guy, fucking poodle hat, like this guy. First of all, the hair goes a long way for me in terms of the comedy. Pretty much everything this man does is funnier because his haircut is ridiculous. But also he's got like the idea that this guy is naive can kind of like his naivety based on his weird fucked up upbringing and his need to sort of conceal himself and his brother, I think can be used as a method of explaining it away. I don't think that like his acting is very good, but I think that it does make a kind of sense for the character. So yeah, I mean, fair and all, but I just don't see it that way, I guess. And maybe,
yeah. And I think what's going to come down to a lot of movies is like, I'm kind of like going by the measurables. It's like, is the acting good? Nope, it's not. Is the editing good? And the film, cinematography? No, it's not. And once you kind of go down the list, it's like, and the measurables are not good. And what you really have to get from this film is finding it endearing. And if you don't, like I don't, it's trash. So it really goes a long way of like, I find this very charming and endearing and like having that personal kind of taste. But I think all the measurables stack up to being like pretty bad.
I mean, I guess that's fair. If like, it's not jarring to me to hear that somebody doesn't really love Basket Case. Like I get it. Right. It's not the most accessible movie. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I definitely do find this movie endearing, knowing a little bit about its production history and like who Frank Henenlotter is. And as he goes on, like throughout his movie career, like he chooses to make movies like this, but just with more money. And you can tell he gets like actors that have done a lot more work and deliver better performances, and his editing gets tighter, and you can sort of like see him progress, but he still chooses to make these like dirty grindhouse movies. And like, that's obviously what he was always interested in. It's where he started and it's where he stayed, which is kind of cool. Like the guy just sort of knew what he was about and like got better at doing it.
Yeah, I agree. Cause this is his first film, right?
Yeah. It's his first movie.
Yeah. And I mean, and I like kudos to him because he's sticking to the best path he can take in that case. When you got no money and, I mean, he really probably did the best thing that he could, the best choices for that path. But it just doesn't
show.
It's not appealing to me, but I can recognize the at least like cleverness and choosing that, so good on him.
Yeah.
Do we agree that first blood splatter is just ketchup? Do we agree on that?
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
It's probably off-brand ketchup.
It's not Hellman's or Heinz. It's
Hart's ketchup.
Catsup, maybe. Might be
Catsup. Yes, of course.
It's real sugary. You just don't want it. You don't want it.
You don't.
There's no tomatoes in there.
What did you guys think about Belial's design? Like, even though he wasn't lit perfectly all the time, like, do you find the creature effective or scary in its design at all?
It looks like a squashed octopus.
It does.
Yeah, I love that line. But I mean, not. I think it's honestly just kind of. It's bad, but it's also great. Like, it's great because he's just a little melted puddle guy. Like, he's like, even if you are like, I know this is asking way more of this movie than you ought to, but like conjoined twins even generally don't look like melty puddles of goo that are attached on one part of the, like that's not a thing.
Yeah.
But I love that, like, what it does is it allows him to, like, I like at the end, the very last shot of them lying there and he's like right back into his side. Like Belial is right at it. Like, I don't know. There's little things like that really work for me in terms of the design. And then I also think that it just allowed them to do all these really ridiculous and sometimes poorly hung together different shots of this monster and have it make no fucking sense. And you just have to roll with it. So I don't know. Again,
he's pretty
that's
jacked.
The sort of thing.
I mean, got to give him that.
Yeah.
He lifts a man up by his ball sack.
Well, he's walking around on his arms. I mean, we don't see him do that, but if you walk around on your arms all day, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
One other Joe Bob thing to bring up about him is that because it takes basically stop motion to show him in full in frame, that is why we get dong swung in this movie by our lead actor. The only reason that happened is because they couldn't afford the stop motion it would take to show Belial. I don't know how, like hand
scoot down the street,
hand sprinting down the street. So that poor guy, he got like, well, we don't have enough money, so you got to swing dong in this movie. You cool with that? And I guess he was.
It's a cool workaround, though. Workaround is actually kind of a cool idea. Yeah.
It's a cool idea.
Using the psychic link as a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And we also get treated to a full blown hog jog, which is rare,
Yeah,
the hog jog. Yeah,
it is, and that's a cool idea. But it's also going to lead me into another big negative, which I kind of been like holding off on to kind of cover the general film. But I mean, we've seen this in films before, and you can excuse it away as part of like the time. And we've seen this in like Reanimator. I mean, a ton of films. I think we saw it in Private Parts in some ways and stuff. But like, it's super exploitative and misogynistic to have this thing at the end, like this woman just being a monster. I mean, that was another just huge negative point for me. I already wasn't about this film. And again, like I could say, like, you can excuse it away, but part of it, it's a comedy. It's this fun thing. Yeah, except you're going to end it with the exclamation point of a pretty like graphic rape in as far as this movie can pull away, because when he pulls Belial away, obviously Belial's doing like a pumping motion, which is ridiculous in itself, but I don't think it excuses the content, because the woman's like groin is just completely like bloodied, and I was like, this is just like
I don't know, man.
I did hate that. I hated that part.
Yeah.
I will say I hated that.
Yeah,
I don't know about it being graphic. I mean, like if the ketchup blood isn't bothering you anywhere else, why would it bother you there? I don't know. Conceptually,
because it builds to the idea. I mean, because it uses, so we were just saying, it's a cool idea that they're able to replace this guy who's naked. And then it goes to her perspective where he's at her groin, groping at her breast while she's asleep, doing a pumping motion back and forth. And when the brother finds her, there's just blood all over her groin. That's fucked.
I want to say this, though. How would he even have a penis?
I don't believe he does. Yeah.
Well, then what is he doing?
Why even have this kind of scene? Yeah.
I mean,
because it's showing that Belial is a fucking sick asshole.
He's trying to be.
I mean, even like groping her would be like somewhat like bad. I'm not better, but like I thought it was completely fucked and sucked away any kind of goodwill I put a little bit towards this film. I just found it very misogynistic and like overly graphic and very unnecessary.
Well,
yeah, I would have rather him just killed her. I would have rather him just stabbed her to death or something.
Sure, out of jealousy that he's taken their brother away. Fine,
correct. Yeah. I agree.
No, I agree with you. I'm sorry, Bob. You've been cut off a few times.
That would definitely be an easier ending to stomach. I mean, watching a rape scene in a movie is never like enjoyable by any means, and the fact that it's a monster in this movie doing it makes it even more grotesque for sure. But Belial is basically trying to be a normal human being. He's trying to be his brother. Like, he wants to have what his brother has, but he'll never be able to. I mean, the creature doesn't speak, so like you're sort of assuming this based on what we're seeing here. Like he's trying to, I guess, have a relationship with this woman, and when she wakes up, she's terrified because he's a little half mutant person that's terrifying and is also raping her. Like, it's a horrifying ending to this movie. Yeah. But, like, I understand that the character of Belial is like trying to be a normal person and have what his brother has. So
I think there are acceptable ways to show that. For instance, they do it earlier in the film where he sneaks into that other woman's apartment and steals her panties. Like, okay, that's fucked, but you're not like, you're not having a young girl lay in the bed and be like, okay, here's your nude scene, and then, raping her and then throwing fake blood all over her groin. And like, I mean,
I have some trivia about this scene as well. That when they were filming this scene in the movie, I guess the cast and crew were like so disgusted by it that they actually did walk off set. And apparently that happened again when in another one of Henenlotter's productions. I think it was Brain Damage, which was his next movie. I believe that happened as well. I don't know what scene it was in Brain Damage, but I don't know. So I mean, it's obviously it was detestable to them at the time. Okay. I mean, they obviously finished making the movie, and the scene is still in the movie. It's not an enjoyable scene. Like, I understand why it's in there, but it's definitely not like my favorite part of the movie.
It's just kind of a thing that kind of takes a dirty dump on the idea of like, oh, this comedy or whatever. It's like, it's all fun and games until a monster, it's all fun and games when like it's still a monster's doing stop motion all over the ground. But then when you're making it rape someone in a very graphic manner, it's like, that's fuck. Like, fuck that guy.
The thing. That's the thing is I don't
fuck this director and
I mean, I can understand people not liking that, like not liking the scene. I don't particularly like it. Like, it doesn't like rate for me, but it also doesn't bother me particularly in this scene because the rest of the film is so goddamn silly. The monster is silly. The very like everything about this movie to me strikes as sort of like why would I be scared of a camera? Like, it feels like I'm watching a movie, not like I'm watching somebody get raped, because it's very, very slipshod. I don't have a visceral reaction to this the way I would in other movies. I guess what I'm getting at. So it doesn't disgust me or repulse me the way that, even a semi-realistic, it's not even remotely realistic. Yeah. So the thing doesn't have a penis. And what is the blood? We don't even know if that's her blood. Maybe it's his. We have no fucking clue what's happening in this scene. And to me, it just kind of it just kind of flows well, not well, but it kind of excuses itself away as being like, I mean, that's stupid and they don't have to do that, but it doesn't really bother me, I guess.
I think it was a waste of a shoot position
for me, but
it's a waste of a shoot day. If they were struggling with money, I think it could have just been implied that he killed her. Yeah. And that would have been enough. So it does feel strange. I think it
not
was
a good decision.
They hoped it would probably do something for the film to have a longer nude scene, I'm sure. I mean, I understand that decision in 1982, but it's also like it goes on for too long and it's a little unnecessary. And it is the true low point of the film because you're supposed to sort of feel sorry for him by this point. You know more about him. You're supposed to have a little bit of sympathy for the life that he has led. And then it's like, oh no, like he is using his, shit hand to also feel entitled to hurt people outside of just people who wronged him. So that, that does take away, I will admit.
That's a good point, Warren, because I can easily make this movie better and you can still include the things that you want to include. For instance, they're about to have sex consensually. You have your nude scene there. Have sex have Belial freak out, have the brother, in order to improve it, have the normal brother actually distance itself, start to become disgusted by Belial's actions of killing other things, become disgusted from his brother, and actually start to abandon him. And as a result, Belial kills the girlfriend who the brother has formed a closer bond with. That makes it an instantly better film, and you get to have your cake and eat it too.
I agree.
Look, I definitely agree that there's like the excision of this scene would not hurt this film at all. It would only help it, really. I don't know that it doesn't do those things to some extent, to where like him going and doing this thing to them, that is an act of domineering possession of the brother as much as it is of her. And that's the whole thing that we're getting to. And I wish also that they had led into that a little bit clearer, but the throughout the film, it's like not very well laid out, but I think that they are trying to imply like that this brother, he's the basket case. He's the one who acts strangely around people because he's got this mental connection to this monster. And he's been basically, he stops having sex with this woman for the first time in his life, this beautiful woman who's throwing herself at him, because he's getting ESP waves from his brother and he can't have it. And he's like, I don't know, like the sibling rivalry there, I think is there. The motivation of having him go and transgress in some way against her is there. I agree with you that I wish it was something else, that it was just a strict murder, or even if they just taken out the thrusting, I think that would have been enough for me. That's the only part that seemed graphic to me.
Yeah, leave it up to interpretation what he was able to do. I agree with you. Yeah.
Right. Like, and just have him show up to a bloodied body. Like, that's fine to me. That doesn't give away, that doesn't edge on bad taste as badly to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like I'm making excuses for the worst part of this movie, and I don't. It doesn't need me to do that. I'm just saying, like, it's a little bit overblown to say that this movie is like repulsively disgusting, because it's also like the silliest fucking thing in the world. And if it had been actually,
I think it's unnecessarily misogynistic.
I think that's fair, and I think that you're going to find that that's a stalwart portion of the schlock.
Well, yeah. Well, but I'm just saying, especially if this type of incident occurred on two of, and this dude didn't create a whole lot of movies from what I was looking at his filmography. So if this happened on two of his films, where the crew who's down to make this rough and tough type of schlocky movie walked away, I mean, maybe something's fucking wrong with this guy.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I think that's fair to point out.
Are there any other big points y'all want to hit on before we rate this thing? No.
I would be curious. I have a question. Like, how successful was this movie at the time? Because, I don't know if this is a spoiler. I know they did make two more. So did it take a while to catch on? Was it popular? Was it successful? Like, I'm curious to know that.
According to Joe Bob, anyway, that this movie, was it got its following by being every single night being the midnight movie at a specific theater in New York.
It was the Waverly.
I think it was New York.
Waverly
the
Theater.
Waverly.
For 2 years after its release, it was the midnight movie for 2 straight years. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And as New York is changing and becoming more family friendly, and it's, like we said earlier, sort of like living in that seedy underbelly Times Square of the 70s. So I feel like that has a lot to do with it being picked up by the schlock theater crowd.
Yeah. I mean, people hated it at Cannes, which, makes sense. This is definitely not a movie that would go over well at Cannes. But yeah, I think people just saw it at, drive-ins and grindhouses over the years, and sort of, the word of it spread around for a while. So I don't think it was like, an overnight success, or that it made a shitload of money, but it definitely like has its following, and played in New York for 2 years every single night, which is pretty damn cool. So.
I guess they're still trying to, the guy who is the lead in this, according to Joe Bob, is now a well-known sculptor somewhere in like New Mexico or somewhere. And, is dying to make a part 4. And I'm just like, I am curious to see part 2 and 3, just to see how the fuck they do more.
I watched the trailers. They're really something. I'll tell you that.
Like just the grim curiosity gets me, and I'm sure they're worse and less fun to watch. But
isn't it the same director? Didn't he do all three?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
The third one is, man, they saw Beetlejuice and they went, "Oh, we got something."
Yeah. Nice.
I'm telling you right now, it is. Look, I'm gonna watch them all. So
I've seen the second one, and it's definitely more comedic, but I've never seen the third one. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, watch that trailer. It's man.
Tight. All right, well let's go ahead and rate this thing out of 5. Warren, you are the guest of honor. Why don't you kick us off, man? How do you feel about Basket Case?
So like I said, other than the scene that we really spent some time on, I do think there's a lot to like about it. When you take into account the other stuff that I didn't even know about, the budget and just everything else, it does make it even more endearing. There is like a real quality to the fact that they, put this thing together with toothpicks. And I think it's really fun to watch when you just consider all that, especially. So I'm going to give it a solid 3. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's like an all-time classic like we talked about up top, but I do think if you're into this sort of movie, or if you're just into like 70s and 80s, B movies, I think you would be impressed based on what you know about it. You'd think it's a little better than you expected. So I'll give it a 3.
Right on. Solid 3 from Warren. Juice, what about you?
As far as like, again, coming back to the classics of this, what I will say is like being able to see its influence in like, it's probably the most distinct idea of like the evil twin, horror trope or, horror idea, whatever. So, I can see its influence in other things, but other than that, like I wouldn't consider this a horror classic myself. Like I said, all the measurables come up negative to me. The acting is very bad. The editing is very bad. I don't particularly enjoy it adds to what they're trying to do, but the grittiness of like New York City and stuff like that, it's just like not a super appealing setting to me. And a lot of the times they spend in this like really tiny hotel room anyways, and so it's like that's not super appealing to me. I just don't think there's a whole lot of quality other than like sometimes the design looks cool when they're actually using makeup, and like I'll give them some. I don't think the stop motion looked particularly good, but I mean, for the budget they had, I think they did probably the best they could. I really think you have to find this movie endearing. The comedy was not there for me. Not finding this movie endearing, I didn't feel like, man, this movie's really delivering on some solid comedy. I chuckled maybe 2 or 3 times. The toilet one was really the one that stood out to me. He's hiding in the toilet. Like that was kind of funny. And then just this huge like negative exclamation point of the rape scene at the end. I think it's like very unnecessary. I just mentioned a couple ways where I could like easily improve this movie's story and development of its characters and not have those kinds of scenes, still include nudity. I just found it very unnecessary and already like this huge negative point to a movie I wasn't really digging anyway. So I was planning on giving this movie a 2 out of like respect for like the effects and like the low budgetness of it all and stuff like that. But because of that scene and the swing and dong run through the streets, I'm going to give a negative half star. So I'm going to end this one at a 1.5.
1.5 from Juicy J. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in.
Rob,
here.
you want to jump in? Yeah. Out of 5, Basket Case. This was your kind of hard push for our classic cover this quarter. So defend yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, just speaking on this movie's sort of legacy and influence and it's sort of like classic status or not, like I think it is very influential. Like you mentioned, it's sort of like one of the earlier movies of the like evil twin type dynamic. And I think obviously it's gone on to influence even The Simpsons. Even Malignant was sort of influenced by this movie, James Wan's latest film. So I think it definitely does have some influence. I would consider it like a grindhouse classic. It's not a classic in the same sense of, John Carpenter's Halloween or The Thing or Psycho or Jaws, or it's not like that, obviously. But the movie itself does have a certain charm for me. It's got this kind of like punk rock DIY vibe, this very low budget sort of thing that I appreciate about it. And the comedy, for the most part, does work for me. I think anytime Belial's on screen, it's pretty hilarious. Like when he's attacking people, like his scream, the way that sounds is just like overblown and ridiculous, and like his goofy face, like he's also like kind of scary in some scenes when he's like raging and you see how strong he is and he's throwing furniture across the room and just breaking shit down. I think whenever Dwayne is like dropping sacks of hot dogs and hamburgers into his basket and you just hear him like going to town, like that shit is funny to me. Not like busted gut funny, but like I get like pretty consistent chuckles. And when the gore kicks in, like they don't hold back. It looks like you can tell somebody's got like a squirt gun off screen and they're just like, hosing somebody down with watered down ketchup. Like that's what's happening. And I think that's fucking hilarious and charming. Again, that kind of stuff does work for me. The rough acting sometimes is just like unbearable for sure. Like there's some sequences that I do find that a little charming as well. But man, there's some sequences where Dwayne is delivering the most wooden acting like you've ever seen in your life. I also found it kind of confusing as to why Sharon was so enthralled with Dwayne, because like he does nothing and she just like loves the shit out of him. And like even when he sort of kicks her to the curb, leaves her ass at the fucking Statue of Liberty and hauls ass, she follows him back to the hotel and is like banging on his door, like demanding to be let in. Is like, damn lady, like this dude's kind of crazy, and do you see where you're standing? This fucking hotel is disgusting. Run for the hills. What are you doing? I don't know. I dig this movie though. Overall, I think I'm on the same page as Warren here. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5, but I am gonna give it an extra half star for the hog jog. Got to balance you out, Juice.
Ooh,
I was going to say that might bring mine up.
The hog alone is not enough. The jog is requisite.
The first time Rob's given a half star for nudity, and it's for the hog jog.
The old hog jog. Dude, that
half star for the hog jog.
He's got balls of steels running through New York City completely fucking naked.
Apparently it was cold as shit.
Cold as shit.
Oh, it looked cold. It definitely looked cold.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
I hope it was cold.
Fucking Dwayne. Randu, how do you feel about Basket Case?
Yeah, I mean, I largely agree with pretty much most of what you said, Bob. Like, there's some things about this movie that are certainly distasteful, or other like that one scene is distasteful. I don't think that it's particularly like disgusting to me. So I guess it's not getting a pass by any means, and it could easily have been written differently and accomplish the same goal, to Justin's credit on that. But I just like the rest of this movie is so goddamn silly and ridiculous that I just have a hard time getting offended by it, I guess. So that aside, just sticking the pin in that, I think overall this movie is a lot of fun. Like, I think it's a fun in a group setting. I think that it's general, like the placemaking that they do in this movie is pretty great. I think that some of the acting is like way ridiculous, like soap opera acting that is funny to watch, and some of it is, to Rob's credit, like pretty wooden and a little bit hard to watch. There were parts of this movie that I was bored. But largely, like, for the kind of movie that this is, the grindhousiness of it all, I think it deserves a place in that realm of classic. Like Rob said, I think that it hangs together better than most movies of that caliber, and certainly of this budget. I think they made an honest attempt, and I totally do see the DIY like magic that's going on. Even before I really knew anything about the production of this film, the first time I saw it, I was like, you could just kind of feel the sort of like devil may care, just fucking let's try it sort of-ness of it all. And this is the kind of the forum for that, the grindhouse cinema. I think there's value in that culturally, even beyond the idea of the trope of conjoined twins with an evil psychic link and all that shit, which, yeah, we see quite a bit too. It's got its place in culture, and I think that it deserves to be a horror classic the same way that, you see people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that don't sing rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like, it fits in the pantheon, even if it's not a dead ringer for the umbrella term. overall, I just really, I don't think this is a movie that I could watch over and over and over and over again for eternity, but I could watch it a few times and I could still find new things to like about it. I think with a drink and some buddies, this is a perfect kind of film for that. But yeah, it's got its faults, certainly. And it's by no means a perfect film. It doesn't it's not trying to and doesn't say a whole lot, but it does give off enough of an entertainment value for me to look upon it positively. So for me, I was hovering between a 3 and a 3.5. I'm going to give it a 3.25 and just split the difference so I can stop making my head hurt. Yeah, it's not great, but it is to me a classic. It has its place and it is a lot of fun in a lot of ways. Also, I do want to double down, Bob, to your point about why anybody would be interested in Dwayne. I guess the reason is because that actor or that woman, the receptionist, God, I cannot remember these characters' names.
Sharon.
She's just like a lunatic. Like she acts like a manic, insane person for the entire first time you see her. She's just like, I don't know. It's like tough to understand where she's coming from the whole time. And it's tough to understand what she sees in Dwayne, except for being just desperate hard up to be with this guy.
I also like that Dwayne has two modes. He's either like he's either dull as a fucking doornail, or he is like, don't you understand? Like he literally only has two gears, like a fucking rock or like just high school
or
theater.
A cackling drunk, which is also fun to watch.
I literally told my wife, I was like, there's not an actor in this movie outside of maybe the father and the lady in the waiting room at the doctor's office that could have even been cast in a school play. Like, I mean, there's some really bad acting.
Aunt did a good job, actually.
Yeah, she's pretty
Credit
good.
to her. But yeah, it's fucking Dwayne.
I will say to defend Sharon is working in a pretty terrible place, so it doesn't seem like she has good judgment skills anyway.
I guess
no,
so.
Her
like
standards
really play
are
up the bimboism of her.
low.
To your point about misogyny, maybe there's something there because damn, this woman just makes every bad decision. I think.
Yeah.
Also, why is she wearing a wig? I'm curious what her hair looks like.
Joe Bob covered it. Rob, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I have some trivia on that as well.
Ooh,
So
right.
she was in a band. The actress's name is Terry Susan Smith. She was in a punk rock band called the Tattooed Vegetables, and she wore a wig because she had to shave her head for the band.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Much to Henenlotter's chagrin.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about misogyny, and I don't want to sound like an asshole, but she was not bad to look at. I'd be curious.
No, I mean,
the bald head. I'd be curious.
I don't know. Tattooed
These
Vegetables.
punk rock girls, man, like back in the day, that's what shocked me about it. I was like, okay, well, own yourself, I guess.
Do it. I tried to find them on Spotify. They were not there. So I don't know.
They got to be on
That's
YouTube
wrong
or
as well.
something. There's got to be.
Probably.
Do you have more trivia, Bob?
I do, but before we get into the trivia, we got to jump over to our Rotten Tomatoes segment real quick. However, our aggregate is a 2.8 for Basket Case. Let's see what the critics and
I'm
users
glad I
think.
could keep it under that 3 average.
Thanks a lot, Juice.
I'm proud of that.
What an ass.
Even with Bob's half star for the hog jog,
The old
I
hog
kept it
jog.
under the 3.
I've never seen somebody so quick to ascribe credit to himself. It's crazy. The averages. I have gamed them.
Got to pull it down. All right. Randu, take us away.
Certified fresh to death.
All right. So this is our Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to give these 3 gents the chance to guess within the best of their abilities what the critics and user scores are for Basket Case 82 on RottenTomatoes.com. We're going to start with our critic score, as we usually do. There are 25 of them. And so that's not a very high number to choose from here. Let's start with Warren. You're our guest. Why don't you kick us off? What percentage of those 25 critics do you imagine gave this a positive review?
You said 25 people.
25 reviews count.
I am willing. Okay. And we'll see if I'm right. I'm willing to bet if only 25 people scored this thing, I have a feeling it's on the higher side. So I'm going to say 82%.
82% year of this film's release. Nice. All right, Bob, we're going to go to you next. What do you think the aggregate score is for critics?
I think it's going to be higher than our average. Not through the roof, though. I'm going to go with a 75.
75. Okay. Juice, how about you? Where are you coming in on this one?
Yeah, I'll take the low end, but I'll keep it around the same area. So I'll take the 69 special.
Ooh, all right.
69, dudes!
Thanks,
Thank
Bill and
you.
Ted. All right. So we got a 69 from Juice, a 75 from Bob, and an 82 from Warren. And Bob, you were so close to the ringy dingy. This is a 76%.
Nice.
Whoa!
76. Yeah, you were so close. So yeah, generally positive. Not enough critics to confirm it as rotten
Certified.
or certified, I guess, or maybe just not high enough. I don't know what.
You guys
Yeah,
aren't
I
going to
think,
believe me, but my first thought was 76. I could have been right on the money.
Oh,
I
you could have got
changed
that
my answer. I really
ringy
did.
Warren.
I changed my answer in my
I
mind.
fucked up. We'll give it to you, Bob. You're getting it taken away.
Can I get a hell? Oh, I want a hell skeet, damn it. Give me the hell skeet.
Oh boy, Juice. it's
Warren,
up
would
to
you like to give Warren a hell? I mean, Warren, would you like to give Bob a hell skeet?
Well, he was like, no.
Just,
I'll give him a hell skeet. Go ahead.
All
give it to
right.
him.
all right, hell skeet.
All right,
Yeah.
moving on to our audience score. There are 10,000 plus audience ratings for this film, so significantly more.
How
and
many?
I think we're going to go
I'm sorry,
10,000 plus.
10,000. Okay.
So we're going to start with Juice this time. Going to go in reverse order. What do you think that aggregate is for those 10,000 people?
76 for the critics. It seems high, but I wanna believe that this score is gonna drop a bit with people actually watching and reviewing it. We see that sometimes, so I'm gonna give it the 60.
60, you said?
Yeah,
Okay. 60 from Juice. Bob, where are you at with it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be lower with that many people. I'm going to go with a 70.
70. All right. You got 60 and 70. And Warren, where are you at?
I'm gonna do what Juice did. I'm gonna go a little bit lower. I'm gonna be around. I'm just gonna go with my gut because I almost changed it again. I'm gonna say 58%.
58%. All right. Well, buddy, your gut's doing double overtime this week. It is 54%. So you, my friend.
that's more appropriate.
Here's
Warren,
the
would you
critics-
like a hell skeet or a hell yeet?
I'm gonna take a hell yeet since you're offering.
Hell yeet!
All right.
Dude,
Here's the critics.
are way too excited to do that.
Believe me, buddy, if this desk just rose 3 inches. Okay.
Only 3?
You know, it's a tall desk already. A short chair. Leave me alone.
It's cold.
The old
It's
cold
cold.
boner. Hate to see it.
It's cold on the hog jog.
You know, I was working all day. Let me rattle off a few more excuses here.
He was in the pool, guys. Let's give him a
I
break.
was in the pool.
The shark edge.
The critics' consensus reads as follows. While Basket Case definitely delivers all the gonzo gore promised by its cracked premise, it's really set apart by its rich vein of genuine pathos. The gore, I mean, might be a little bit of an overstatement, but at least for most of it, I think there is something interesting happening pathologically with these lead brothers. So I will give them that for sure. It seems about right. Let's go to some reviews and see if we can find a humorous or otherwise interesting one. Here's a negative one. Everything about this film is gratuitous, and despite its essential humorlessness, it's almost hilarious in a sidelong sort of way. Yeah, I don't see humorlessness, man. I just don't see it. This movie definitely doesn't take itself seriously.
It doesn't, but that doesn't mean it's funny.
Review left by Juice.
That's
8
not
minutes
also,
ago.
that's not a lack of humor. Not being funny and a lack of humor are not the same thing.
Yeah, I found it like almost humorless.
I don't know. Humorlessness means that you like that. It's like you're taking it very seriously. That's what that means. So this movie is not that.
Wow.
I don't know. Unless you're talking about, if you're talking about it not being funny, that's up to the eye of the beholder. Sure, go ahead. But I think it's a different thing. Anyway, let's try one more. I don't know. Its singularity makes it far more valuable than any number of movies made at an ostensibly higher level of quality. Damn, that's pretty fucking high praise. I don't know if I'm all in on that particular opinion, but sure. All right. That's our Rotten Tomatoes segment. No need to mine this depth anymore.
All right. Let's jump over into some trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
Bob, hit us with more of that trivia.
I'm going to hit you with it. We covered a good bit already, but I do have a few more pieces here. Randy touched on this where like the distributor ended up cutting all of the gore sequences out of the original cut of the movie and started putting it out that way. And then they ended up contacting Joe Bob specifically to arrange a showing of it at a drive-in somewhere in Texas. And he was doing his like drive-in reviews at the time, and they contacted him to try and help set it up. And he was like, I'm happy to do it. I love the movie, but he's like, but you got to put the gore scenes back in if you want to do that, because it doesn't work without them. And I don't know that it was him specifically that got them to do that, but they listened to him or to somebody else and did restore the film the way it was meant to be seen by Henenlotter, and he ended up setting up that screening in Texas for him.
Damn,
it's weird the areas that Joe Bob's fingerprints are like all over that particular strain of film at that time.
Good for him. Yeah. I want to clarify then. So the version that played in the theater for 2 years as a midnight movie was the one with no gore?
No.
I think it was the one with gore.
Okay. Well, because Bob said it played that, they released it that way until Joe Bob said you need to put the gore back.
Yeah, I don't know like how many screenings of it really happened. They started putting it out that way, but I don't know how long it lasted.
Okay.
Chances are that's just where it gained prominence, is I think the story. It's not so much that was like its first big run or anything.
Yeah. This movie was dedicated to Herschel Gordon Lewis, who is otherwise known as the Godfather of Gore. He made a bunch of very low budget B movies, gore pictures. He was like kind of one of the first guys to do that back in the 60s. Henenlotter is a big fan of Herschel Gordon Lewis, so much so that he released a documentary in 2015, I think, where it's just about Herschel Gordon Lewis's life, basically, and the influence that his films had. So you can check that out if you are interested. Also, Henenlotter keeps Belial in his house still to this day.
Damn.
Just chilling.
I've always been a creeper.
Yeah, that might fit.
Kind of a creeper. 30 years after this movie's release, the actress who played Casey, Beverly Bonner, she starred in a stage production called Casey 30 Years Later that had a screening of Basket Case before the show. I don't know if you can watch that anywhere or if it was filmed. Maybe it's up on YouTube, but if you want some more Basket Case content, check out Casey 30 Years Later.
That seems like one of those leaves in the wind, gone, lost to time sort of things to me.
Maybe.
Which is a shame because, man, I am curious what's her name? Beverly Bonnie?
Bonaire.
I like whatever she got out of the Casey character was a lot more than most people. I think. Like, I love the Casey character. I was like, man, she's just a sweet, like the prostitute with the heart of gold. Good for her. She's helping this naive little dork find his way. And she's paying almost the ultimate price for it. But yeah I don't know if 30 years later is necessary.
Randy, maybe that was her boyfriend, you asshole. How do you know that old guy wasn't just her boyfriend, man? Come on.
I mean, I guess maybe he died that night because we don't see him again.
I was trying to see if it was included on this Arrow video disc here, but there's
that would be incredible if it does.
I don't see it on there. There's so much.
I feel like if it existed, it'd probably be on there by the way you describe it.
I don't know if can you see that? Those
God damn!
Oh, holy shit! That's a lot.
So much
Holy
shit.
Fuck.
For people
Takes up like the
only
whole
listening
half
to
of
the
the
podcast, yeah, it's like half the box in microscopic text.
It's
the features. My God.
insanity. It's like reading liner notes.
Also, minor note, Randy's like background is like hypnotizing me. It kind of gives me some like, it looks like carpet almost, but also kind of giving me some like Shining vibes, like with the triangles.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know,
kind of nice.
Wicker.
I've got two more bits of trivia here. The bedtime story that the boy's aunt reads to them is from Shakespeare's The Tempest. Specifically, she's reading them a speech by Caliban, who is a deformed, animalistic creature that once attempted to rape the protagonist's daughter and was enslaved as a result. So, kind of inspired by The Tempest, I guess.
Oh, Caliban.
Oh, boy.
I didn't like
that rascal.
That is also an X-Men character, I believe. And I don't know much about him, but I feel like I don't want to anymore.
Yeah. The last bit I have here is the bar scene was shot at an old S&M club in Manhattan. It was known as the Hellfire Club. The bar was
I have a daddy kink.
Hell yeah. The bar was so big that the crew also used it as the Bradley's basement, and the crew had to hide all the sex toys, including a very large swing, which apparently is still in the club. The original buzzsaw used to kill Dwayne and Belial's father also used to hang above the door of the club until it was eventually stolen. So that's interesting.
Oh,
jeez. Yeah, for what purpose? Don't even think about it.
Oh, yeah. God. Stolen from the BDSM club.
I got to take this one home.
Oh, boy.
Art of movie history is going in my ass tonight, ladies.
That thing is rusted to pieces now.
Hey, girl, you ready to get this buzzsaw?
Oh, God, no!
That's it for trivia. Let's go ahead and talk Cooter of the Week.
Let me ask you one thing.
Oh, cut the button. We can't stop.
We can. Okay.
Well, so one thing my wife noticed, and I actually rewound it and did notice it as well. And I thought maybe this would be something that was online. But when he's talking to the lady in the bar about his brother for the first time, he actually accidentally calls his brother Dwayne. So he refers to his brother in the basket as Dwayne, and Emily noticed that, and I rewound it, and he does. So I was like, oh, maybe that's a blooper that's online, and they mention it. So I just wanted to bring it up.
Maybe I subconsciously noticed that, because then I was like, is there a brother in the basket? I thought they might have done a swerve, and maybe I just kind of like ingested that like subconsciously, because at one point I wrote a note of like, is there an actual brother, or is this kid just like going around killing doctors because he's psychotic? But no,
under his arm.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be cool.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Cooter of the Week.
All right, Cooter of the Week.
I need a prompt.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the Week.
Juice, what is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, and we want the cooter with the most points. The 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviancy, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, let's put this one in the basket. Is it Belial?
Yeah, I think it's Belial.
Why don't you go ahead and lay it on us why you think so, Juice? You kind of came out of the gate with that one.
All right, so manipulation. Let's go ahead and hit that one. He's obviously manipulating his brother to some effect, because his brother is saying like, oh, these people deserve it. Like, oh, Belial's kind of driving him crazy. He's not letting him get a lot of sleep. He's kind of driving the idea of like killing these doctors. So I would say we could give manipulation to old Belial.
Nay.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes.
That's a hard yes. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, that's one of the more interesting things about it, is that about the whole pathos that they were talking about in the critics' consensus is that he is more or less driven insane by his addled puddle morphous blob brother, who
out of a sense of duty.
Yeah, out of a sense of duty, but also like, it really was out of a sense of duty, wasn't it? Yeah, that's really the main thing. So yeah, manipulation hits for sure. Arrogance, kind of tough to say, but I mean,
I don't know if we can really give that to him. Yeah, we don't get enough of his character and his mindset. He doesn't talk,
But could we give it the way he kind of trashes the room? I don't know. Like, that's kind of got like a sense of arrogance in a way of like, how dare you live without me kind of situation.
I mean, I think that's jealousy and toxic fucking jealousy. Yeah. I don't know if it's arrogance. Like, I don't know how you ascribe smugness to that. Like, I don't think that, like, there's no point at which Dwayne is like, no, I don't need you. We don't get any hint that he thinks he's more important than Dwayne, just that he's jealous of Dwayne. So I don't know if I would give him that point.
Okay. All right. We'll let him slide on that one. Sexual deviance, check.
Check-a-rooney.
Can we give him a tire because he's a little melty man? Or is that
because he kind of looks like a tire?
Also, give that guy a t-shirt or something.
A little crop top.
Give him an I Heart New York t-shirt. Sure.
I Heart. That's it.
Also, for some reason, I don't know why. I never seen this movie, never really heard of it. But when I just pictured in my mind before I even watched this movie of like, oh, this guy carries his brother around in a wicker basket, I just assumed it was like a backpack style wicker basket, like that you would see people carrying like babies or something in. And I was like, this is the worst way to carry this fucker around. Like, that thing is huge, and he takes it to like a bar, and like, it's just, why would anybody take a wicker basket to a bar?
He took it to a movie where a junkie tried to steal it from him.
Yeah.
Like,
I forgot about that scene. Yeah.
I think that's sexual deviancy is an easy check. So let's go forward.
Looking attire is what we're on now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the way they designed this thing, he looks like a melted man.
Also, and he's hanging off in the pajamas. The way they like cut out the pajamas just to make him like fit when they're young, before the surgery or whatever.
Yeah,
kind of funny.
Patheticness.
Pathetic, yeah. I think he's kind of pathetic.
I think so, but it's kind of a tough. Like, it really does come down to his pathos of being like, yeah, he's got a terrible, terrible situation. His life sucks, and it's not his fault, and it is largely other people's fault in some capacity, anyway. But I think that the acts that he's doing, the lashing out, the jealousy of his brother, or whatever, that speaks to
pathetic,
a pretty pathetic lack of empathy towards somebody.
Also, stealing panties. Can't do that.
The old panty raid.
Pathetic.
Yeah.
Panty raid is it's an era, bygone era of panty raiding melting monster.
I see it every day. So, I mean, that's a strong...
Just the culture is suffering,
That's
boys.
a strong Cooter. 3, I mean, 4, maybe even all 5. At least 3 for sure, though.
Yeah, he said
minimum.
He clocks.
Yeah.
I think there's probably some other low-level Cooters in this mix. Rob, are you going to bring one up right now?
No, I was going to say. Okay. I don't know that anybody would beat him. Honestly, Dwayne.
Yeah, that's what I was going to too. Dwayne is pathetic as fuck. But
yeah, but he's not really
his hair is ridiculous.
Deviant. He's
or
not
looking attire for the hair, easy.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't even think he's truly that manipulative, except in like self and brotherly protective ways.
Yeah. Even
he manipulates the doctors to being killed. Actually, I guess you could put him that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. That veterinarian, they made a point to make her a real piece of shit right at the end.
I love that she was a fucking vet that they hired to do this. Like,
damn. Dude. It's fucking... The dad was a little bit cootery.
Yeah,
he was. But we didn't get a lot of him.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have two sons. I have one freak. Like that guy went for the rafters with his performance. Yeah, pretty much. You can see where this comes from.
He gets it from his daddy.
Damn that bump.
Yeah.
Let's throw that bump in the trash after this.
Oh no, that's a mainstay.
Yeah,
definitely keep that. You got to keep that.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Warren.
There's only one other scream that beats it, and it's
fucking classic.
There was a woman scream that you used that was pretty good.
There's a lot of screams. But screams are easy to come by, it turns out.
Bigfoot scream.
Well, yeah, Bigfoot, the lady Bigfoot scream, of course, and there's this one, of course.
That one.
Space Mutiny scream is pretty great too.
Also, yeah, very good. I think we got him. I think we got our Cooter of the week, Belial.
Yeah, lock
boys
up.
Got him.
Right.
Locked and loaded. Let's go ahead and kick back and talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Warren, why don't you kick us off, man? Other than Basket Case, you been watching anything cool this week?
Yeah, so I've actually been watching Atlanta for the first time.
Hell yeah.
Really enjoying that. I don't know why I took so long to watch it. I'm actually a big fan of that show, Dave. And a lot of people told me like, oh, if you like Dave, you've got to watch Atlanta.
Dave's hilarious.
So I've really been enjoying that. I've been watching a ton of basketball. People who know me know I'm really into basketball. So I've been watching like every game of the playoffs, arguably watching too much basketball. It's taken up almost every evening of my life. But other than that, like not a whole lot. So I've just been relaxing with sports lately.
All right. Sounds cool. Sounds baller. Juice, what about you, man?
So that new season of Love, Death, Robots dropped, and I always, talk about these when they come out, and also I've revisited them a couple times. I did a mini cast on season 2 last year, I believe. So yeah, this just dropped like last week, I think, or over the weekend maybe. And it's only got, I think, 9 segments. So it takes maybe about an hour and a half to get through the whole series this time. And it's still good. I think this one is probably the most consistently good, because if I remember right, the first one has probably around like 16 segments, and they've got some really good ones, and then they dip a lot too. I feel like this one's fine, like the nice medium, less, but generally overall like good quality amongst them. You can tell though they've kind of locked into what people kind of like, because some of the like settings or themes kind of are not feeling super fresh. You get a lot of like, there's a space one, there's a military driven one, there's kind of a comedy driven one. So none of them I thought like, oh my God, that was like super original, actually, except the last one. But they're good. I really enjoyed the quality of these and some really cool stories. So I always recommend people check that out. I'll probably do a mini cast on this season 3. So yeah, I enjoyed that per usual, and would still recommend you check out that whole series. I also watched New Mutants, which is one that came out, I think, because Doctor Strange came out. We're like, oh, it's, kind of got this horror vibe. I was like, I remember people saying like New Mutants might have a little bit of a horror vibe, and it's got some, great actors and actresses in it. So I thought I'd check it out. It's pretty bland. It didn't do a whole lot for me, but it wasn't like the worst thing I've seen. It was okay. I finished The Good Place. Finally. I know I've been talking about that a lot. I thought they handled it really well, and that was a really just pleasant show that they just really stuck the landing on that. Did a good job. I know that's not a hot take or anything, but finally getting around to it.
Make it hotter.
Yeah. And really the only other thing I've been I watched a new horror-esque kind of film called We're All Going to the World's Fair, something like that. I think I'm kind of fucking that title up a little bit. Yeah. But is it? Okay.
We're all going to the World's Fair.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of found footagey. It's super low budget and feels like very indie. It's kind of sells itself more on a horror than it maybe actually is. And it kind of reminds me of a movie that came out in I think in the 2000s, but I don't want to mention it because I think it'll give the spoiler away of like what this movie kind of actually is. So, but I don't go into this movie. I see a lot as like, best new horror movies of 2022. I don't really know if it fits that well enough, but it's interesting. If you're looking for a kind of found footage style, it's more like cam style because they shoot a lot through like their laptops and stuff. But the premise is this very young girl, like 14. She's doing this kind of online challenge where you're supposed to, like a TikTok challenge or something like that, but it's horror based, and she's trying to track her like progress through this challenge. Like, oh, is it changing me? Is it affecting me and stuff? So that's why it's kind of mostly like, cam based. But yeah, it was interesting, but not necessarily horror, I don't think. But yeah, the only other thing I've been watching, classic like Disney movies, but all in Korean to practice my listening. And Disney, I will give them some damn credit. I was watching like Peter Pan, and what they do with like the songs and the voice acting and everything is pretty amazing because they put it all in Korean. I assume they do it with every language, but like the tone of like the song matches, they change all the words, but to fit the melody and to be like as close as possible, like to the meaning, and the voice actors like stick the characters like so much. I was able to watch, like, I'm very familiar with the classic Peter Pan. And like, even though, I couldn't understand all the Korean, it's like, I had no problem following the tone and like the delivery and the songs and everything matched so well. I'm like, holy shit, Disney, you're really spreading that magic like across the world, because that show is pretty
big hand for Disney, everyone. Come on.
Bravo.
Let's give it to the mega conglomerate.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Disney.
kind of like an underground thing of, Disney being amazing. But
do you guys know that Disney's
have you heard of this Disney? Anyways, so I was just like really impressed by that. But yeah, that's about all I've been watching. Bob? What you been watching, my guy?
Bob?
Any butthole documentaries this week?
No butthole.
Tell me about the butthole documentary of the week.
I did revisit the classic Miss Doubtfire.
This
fucking
we should
movie.
Cover it as a horror film.
We could. Mm-hmm. It never gets old, man. I love that movie so much. And like Robin Williams.
Great film.
Robin Williams is like such a singular like force and talent. Like there's never going to be another person like him. And like that movie is so riddled with hilarious lines that he drops that like, even though I've seen it 100 times, like I forget some of the shit that he says. So like when I rewatch it, I'm still busting a gut. Like, oh my God, I totally forgot about this like ridiculous line. There's a couple scenes specifically where he's dressed as Miss Doubtfire and he's just like laying into
I've always
Pierce
been a
Brosnan.
creeper.
He's fucking roasting the shit out of Pierce Brosnan. And like towards the end of the movie where like they're sitting at the dinner table alone, everybody else like has gone to the bathroom or whatever, and he leans over and he's like, ooh, I hope you're ready for some competition. She's got a power tool in the bedroom. When she turns it on, the lights dim. It's like a prison movie. Like fucking just line after line after just fucking, she's got crap, dude. I don't mean Dungeness. Like fucking hilarious.
That is... That man is the quickest witted person that maybe ever lived. He has to be up there, right?
He's got to be.
Yeah. I fucking love that movie though. I haven't been watching a whole lot of other shit. I've been watching that Chucky TV series. The first season came out last October and it got renewed for a new one.
Oh yeah.
Working through that. I finished that up this week and I recorded a mini cast on it. I'll be dropping that soon. I've also been dabbling with some of Eli Roth's History of Horror Season 3 that just dropped on Shudder a couple weeks ago. And those, they're pretty good. They're pretty solid, you know. Yeah, you might pick up a movie, like a title here or there that you haven't heard of before. But he's fairly thorough, and he always has like really good guests on. Like the people that he has on the show to talk to are like baller as hell. Like everybody. Apparently the dude just knows everybody. So that's pretty interesting and like an easy light watch if you want to throw that shit on. It is on Shudder.
Yeah, you're a big Eli Roth fan, aren't you, Bob?
Big Roth boy.
This is the best thing he's done for sure, in my opinion. Anyway.
Purely and simply evil.
Evil. That's pretty much all I've been watching. Randu, what about you?
Buddy, I got a lot to burn through here. My parents paid a visit last weekend, so covering that, I decided to push a limit as a over 30-year-old man with my parents staying with me, and watched the original Jackass with mom and dad, which was quite an experience.
Wow.
Okay.
And, not exactly not exactly a disaster, you know? In fact, I went to bed just after. My parents stayed up a little bit later, and I could distinctly hear the sounds of Jackass 3D playing upstairs.
Yes. True story. My in-laws love Jackass. So,
could hate it.
I agree.
I will die on the hill that is the most universal property for comedy ever.
The new one's very funny. Loved it.
Yeah, it is. And as a matter of fact, Jackass 4.5, the documentary about the film Jackass Forever, just dropped on Netflix. Watched that. Great fun. Some really funny moments that Becky, for one, like lost their damn fucking mind laughing at least one or two things in that thing. So, I mean, if it gets Becky, you know it's sick and twisted.
Had Becky never seen it before?
Well, it was 4.5, so neither. It was brand new.
I got you.
No, we saw that was the seal breaking after COVID of going to the movie theater for us.
Gotcha.
As it was for many people. I watched on a whim. I watched the movie Popcorn on Shudder, which I want to reserve some comment for because I would like to review it at some point soon, if not on an episode, then on a mini cast. So I'm kind of reserving on that, but I enjoyed that. I watched Alex Garland's Men on day after opening night. So, again, we may or may not cover it, so I'm holding on to that for a second. I watched The Stylist on Shudder, which I was okay with. You know, I was really sold based on the cover because it's so very like beautiful. That poster that they put together for that movie, it looks like a Beauty and the Beast cover. It's like, I don't know, there's something really great about it, and the lighting in the movie kind of matches it to some extent. I don't know that I loved the movie overall, but it was fine, and I'll stand by that poster is fucking badass, and the performances in it were good too. I'll give them that too. Speaking of Robin Williams, I watched a movie again on a whim called Awakenings, which is Robert De Niro and Robin Williams starring. It's not a comedy. It's like a tearjerker drama by, oh my God, I'm blanking. Laverne. Goddamn. Penny Marshall. It's a Penny Marshall film. And it's about a true story, like purportedly, about a doctor who found a way of basically waking up this group of comatose patients who had a similar childhood disease. He found a way for them to basically become regular people again for a short time. And so Robert De Niro goes from being basically like vegetative state for the most part to being something of a regular person, but eventually I don't know, I don't want to spoil anything, but like things get more complicated than that. And I don't know exactly how much of that was changed for the drama of it all, but for the sake of the movie, it was pretty fun. It doesn't have the Robin Williams wit to it though, which is a shame. He does a great job, but it's not the funnest version of Robin. Let's see. I also watched the Corman edition of Little Shop of Horrors again. That movie gets funnier to me every time I watch it. We Own This City. I have watched 2 episodes now. I'm very slowly taking my time with that, and it's starting to shape up, baby. I'm getting pretty excited about how this thing's going to go.
Yeah, it's good.
What is? Can you give me an elevator pitch on that? I haven't heard about that.
So I don't know if you know The Wire, or if you've watched The Wire.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so it's David Simon. It's a limited series of I think 6 episodes. Set in Baltimore about a specific true event that happened there, centered around the gun. What is it, Bob? It's like the Gun Recovery Task Force or something.
Like that, yeah.
They're trying to basically trying to like commandeer all the guns on the streets.
All right, say less. I'm watching that immediately.
Yeah. So far, so good. It's got John Barenthal in it in a huge role, which is great. Anyway, he does a great Baltimore accent, by the way.
He does.
And then I watched some episodes of Old Enough, the Japanese show that dropped on Netflix that is about sending 2 to 5-year-old kids to do little chores, and it's extraordinarily cute and extraordinarily Japanese.
Yeah.
And last but not least, I am at Ganon's Castle on Ocarina of Time, and I haven't had a ton of time to play this week, but I'm ramping up to complete the thing.
It's an epic ending to an epic game.
Man, I have a question for you guys. You're talking about a couple movies in that, Randy, that you don't want to spoil because you're going to do an episode about them. And maybe this is something you guys have talked about in a recent episode. I'm a little behind, but have any of you or all of you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's incredible.
I would like to say, it's incredible. I would like to say you should do an episode about that. I think in some way it does qualify as horror, and you should just do it.
You know, our standard for what qualifies as horror is very, very slipshod. So it could easily fall into our categories.
It's a very bizarre story that does have elements of that I think could apply to a horror movie. I think it'd be a fun listen.
Yeah.
That's a
I'm
baller-ass
always
movie.
willing to talk about it.
Yeah, we could.
Remarkable movie.
Mhm.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Good suggestion.
I'm on board.
Yeah.
So now you got to do it, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the spot.
Every time we have Warren on the show, he just signs us up to do another show. He's like, you got to talk about Basket Case.
If you want Warren's dreams to come true, sign up on Patreon for
Are we going to cover men or everything, everywhere, all at once?
Got to do them both.
Or Doctor Strange.
Strange Mange.
Nah, that's not a horror. So,
I mean, Sam Raimi.
I mean, Warren thinks it is. Warren wants us to cover Doctor Strange.
It is Sam Raimi. I mean,
we're on the spot.
On the spot. We do
this is why I'm here.
We do not have any voicemails this week. But if you guys are listening and would like to call and leave one to be featured next week, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Gentlemen, do you have any prompts you want to throw out there for next week's Hotline Scream?
I do have one that I kind of forgot to mention a little bit in my What You've Been Watching. But so I've been thinking a lot about nautical themed horror because one of the short Love, Death, and Robots was nautical themed. And also I went back and was recommended a episode from the Light and Shadow podcast, which is nautical theme based horror, which I really enjoyed. And it got me thinking about like The Lighthouse 2. And I was like, man, you know, what is maybe some underseen, like maybe nautical themed horror? You know, we're talking like mermaids, sirens, just the shore, things coming up the shore, you know, nautical based cults, or I don't know, anything that you could think of that you could recommend, because summer, you know, we're in the summer season now. And I don't know, I'm just kind of curious about that now. Or which kind of nautical based maybe creature or mythos, folklore would you be interested in seeing as a horror film? So, well, that's kind of my prompt I've been thinking about lately.
Be prepared to be bedazzled.
Is it true?
Like nothing I'd ever smelled before in my life.
it's a little story of a thing I call Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah.
Bigfoot monster mystery.
Sasquatch.
Straight from the ocean. Yeah.
A little movie called Aquaman. Ever heard of it?
Oh, I'm familiar.
It's a James Wan movie. We got to cover it. We got to do it.
Hey,
we gotta cover it.
Hey, you know what? It's a horror.
It's a horror. It's a horror movie.
James Wan.
Anything can be scary, guys. All right.
Anything can be anything is the answer to this question.
Anything can be everything everywhere all at once.
It's
I mean,
art.
That's just bad
So
graphics
true.
can be horror, right?
True.
Bad CGI.
Nay.
Thank you, Juice.
Well, call in and leave us your voicemails. Tell Juice what aquatic horror movies he should be watching. 904-638-3231. Warren, again, man, big thanks for sitting in with us. We love having you on. It's always a pleasure. And why don't you remind everybody where they can find your podcast at?
Absolutely. And thank you guys for having me on. I love to come on and talk about The Simpsons, but I also just like to hang out with you guys. And this was a blast, as always. If you do want to check out my stuff, go to Bart of Darkness on Instagram or Twitter. You can see my Simpsons collection. You can think I'm a weirdo. You can do any of those things there. You can find my podcast any single place online that has podcasts, and that is called Simpsons is Greater Than. I've interviewed Bart Simpson. I've interviewed Lisa Simpson. I've interviewed some of the people that wrote some of your favorite episodes. Recently, I've been doing more like episode deep dives, like once a month. We just did both parts of Who Shot Mr. Burns. I highly recommend those. Bill Oakley, who let us know this was based on, or that a segment of Treehouse was based on Basket Case, is on one of those episodes because he wrote those episodes with his partner, Josh. So go check those out. Check me out. And like I said, be my friend. Say hello.
Awesome. Yeah, check out Warren.
So plump, so right.
He is so very right indeed. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show, as always. We're going to be hitting up another Patreon pick. This one was chosen by our boy Nasty Nate. The movie is 1985's Clue. Slam it into your eyeball.
Classic. Is it horror?
Is it horror?
Well, it doesn't have
we'll
Raimi,
discuss
so.
next week.
We will. Slam Clue into your eyeballs. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. Don't forget about our Friday Joe Bob watch party, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to join in on our Slack channel conversations, hit us up on one of those social media outlets. I'll send you a link so you can do so. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Ha ha!